I think Elon Musk regrets what he did yesterday.
Why do you think that,
I understand the same.
Tim, why do you think that?
Because I talked to people inside Reform and some of the back channels that they're hearing.
What elements of what he's had to say do you suspect he regrets?
Well, there are elements in which his office are trying to make amends behind the scenes.
Kate McCann, our political editor on Times Radio, is here with me on Pinar and Friends, and so is Tim Montgomery. We're talking about, well, the story of the rape gangs and what is to be done, what is going to be done about those rape gangs in the wake of that. I say the wake, it's not over yet. The political furore raging about that subject, and the failure, and there has been enormous failure on the part of authorities over past years in addressing it, confronting it adequately, and bringing those responsible administratively as well as criminally to book. But we've had that statement now from Yvette Cooper. Tim Montgomery is here. Tim, I spoke just a short while ago, in the last hour, to a lawyer for the victims of these rape gangs. I spoke to Ken McDonald, the former director of public prosecutions, and they were both in agreement. We don't need another inquiry. There's so much out there now. All we need to do is act and see that the action is effective. Now, the point's been made earlier on that there are other people embedded in different authorities, many more authorities that have been discussed in inquiries so far, and maybe a light needs to be put on those. It's not in the nature of these inquiries to name and shame individual officials and public servants and to bring them to account in the conventional way. It's more about learning general lessons and making sure that it changes. And you're nodding, you'd agree with that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, do we need another inquiry, or is that just too much like conventional politicking?
Well, I think we had last week, or was it this week? I forget. This time of year, I always forget which day of the week it is. But we had the Labour government announcing another inquiry into long-term social care. And I think so often we are used to inquiries being a substitute for action, not actually a recipe for action. And we all know that if we have an inquiry, it will cost tens of millions of pounds, money that can't be spent on child protection. It will probably take a couple of years before we even get, a report. And no, I don't support another inquiry. I think there's probably plenty of evidence out there already of what to do. I don't want to repeat myself, so I won't at any length, but it's the prosecution of people responsible we need. And I don't know how you execute that and make that happen. But that's the thing I want more than anything else. And but I don't think the last few days have been wasted. Not at all. I think this is something, I don't know what your experience has been over the last few days, but this is my first day back properly at work. I've been with family and friends. But this topic, people always ask me about politics. I'm in politics. But this is one that I've been asked about much more than normal. This is really exercising people. And I think a little bit like a year ago, it was just after Christmas, we had the, the post office drama on ITV. And that sort of came back after Christmas. It's almost like repeat this year. The public are focused on this issue. And I think government will have heard it. And that's a definite benefit. So I don't think we need another inquiry. We need to make what already should have happened happen, and at pace. All right.
And it's right that we should focus primarily and first on those questions of law enforcement, of child protection, safeguarding of the systems that are in place and that have failed over and over again. But I do want to talk about the politics, first of all, with you, Kate. And Elon Musk, we've been talking about that over today and over this weekend. And Elon Musk, your own observations, because what we've seen from the owner of X has brought into play a sort of curious and in many ways ugly confluence of high, very high and very low politics. And the high questions have to do with the interference, the involvement of a foreign multi-billionaire in the democratic proceedings of a foreign country. We are a foreign country to Elon Musk, and he's engaging deeply in our politics now and the politics of other European countries just across the channel. That raises really important questions, and the manner of that discourse has been so ugly.
Yeah, it has been really ugly, and I think it prompts lots of questions as a result. I mean, on purely political lines, if you are Donald Trump, I think you would be watching what's happened very carefully, and I think you might be having some second thoughts and some reservations about having Elon Musk so close to you in your most senior team.
Do you think,
yes,
Kate?
I do.
And you're nodding to him too.
I do think so, because I think Donald Trump, above everything else, is a pragmatist. He's a guy who likes to get things done, and he understands that he needs to get results. And what I don't think that he wants, for as much as he has sort of pretty robust rhetoric, he doesn't like this kind of echo chamber of noise. It doesn't help him unless it's coming from him. Yeah. And I think, there's always been this question about how much would Donald Trump suffer having another perceived strong man, very vocal, very powerful man leading the conversation, and whether or not actually at some point that might put Elon Musk in a pretty difficult position, a position that puts him out of favour with Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump and Nigel Farage are reasonably close. I'm not saying they're best friends, but the two men will be watching how quickly and how fickle Elon Musk's friendship changes. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were watching as Nigel Farage was about to get millions, hundreds of millions of pounds, or 80 million pounds in donation from Elon Musk to reform. Today, in Elon Musk's eyes, Nigel Farage is not the man to lead reform at all. That's a hugely quick turnaround. Yeah. I think it's worth saying that Nigel Farage, I think, as a pretty astute political operator, had recognised the risk of this, because he, from the very beginning, has been saying, well, let's just see what happens. Elon Musk is not promising all that money. It might not turn out to be exactly what we think, but we welcome it if it comes. So I think that's the first thing. But I think your point is a bit of a broader one, actually, John, which is about political discourse in this country and about what Elon Musk's intervention means. And, he's dragged us into a debate which has a good outcome, ultimately, this statement in the Commons. But it has also had, along the way, a lot of very damaging effects. And I think both the Conservative Party, Reform, and the Labour Party in government are having to try and deal in real time with that. And I don't think really any of them have cracked how to do that yet.
Yeah, and Tim, let me ask you this, your thoughts, as a commentator, more broadly than simply someone who happens to be a supporter of reform right now. Elon Musk, over these recent days, has just crossed every line that's come his way, talking in the most recently, in this quite bizarrely, about the need for Americans to intervene in this country and liberate Britain from a despotic Labour regime. I mean, as absurd as it is outrageous from someone in that lofty position. The sort of more personal stuff about Starmer and Jess Phillips having to be sent to prison. Keir Starmer today was more robust in answering that sort of stuff than I've heard from him yet. Yeah. Was he strong enough?
I don't know. Look, Elon Musk is, a Da Vinci of our age. Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter. He's a great innovator. He's a brilliant man. But we've also seen there is quite a thin line between brilliance and craziness. And it probably changes from day to day. And the stuff that he's been tweeting in the last few days has definitely crossed the line, and it's been crazy, mad, ugly. And it's been very embarrassing for the party I support in the last 48 hours to have had Elon Musk disown Nigel Farage. But I honestly think we may have dodged a bullet. Yeah. Because...
Well, do you think Nigel Farage, as some right-wing commentators have argued, has been presented with an opportunity to bolster his credibility as a leading politician by putting enough distance between him and these rants from Musk, by continuing to denounce Tommy Robinson in the way that he has over the weekend and has in the past? This could work for him. Do you believe that?
Who knows? But thank you for saying continuing to, because Nigel Farage is not everyone's cup of tea. I readily accept that. But one of the things that has made him so successful is, unlike lots of other leaders in the populist right in Europe, he has always drawn a line between that sort of racist extremist element and the mainstream. And Tommy Robinson has qualities like all people. Tommy Robinson is right about some things, like all people, but he's also someone who has race-baited. He's someone who's been guilty of contempt of court. He's been guilty of mortgage fraud. He's guilty of a lot of bad as well as good. And Nigel Farage has quite rightly said he's not coming close to reform. And he said that a number of times, and probably not many people have noticed. Now, the big thing that's going to stop reform going from 20% in the opinion polls to 30% or more is that a lot of Middle England, Middle Britain thinks, a reform a bit dodgy. Are elements of that party, are they going to excuse racism? Are they going to excuse extremism and prejudice? The advantage of the embarrassment of the last 48 hours, and I'm not pretending it hasn't been embarrassing, is that on the front pages, on the Today programme, on programmes like this, we're talking about the fact that on Saturday, Nigel Farage stood up to Elon Musk and said, yeah, you're a good man, but I don't agree with you on Tommy Robinson. And I don't think Elon Musk is used to people saying to him, who's supposed to be an ally, I don't agree with you. And Elon Musk threw his toys out the pram. Now, I can't say too much about this because conversations I've had privately, but I
don't follow what you
well,
mean.
what I'm about to say is that I think Elon Musk regrets what he did yesterday.
Why do you think that, Tim?
I understand the same.
Tim, why do you think that?
Because I talked to people inside Reform and some of the back channels that they're hearing.
What elements of what he's had to say do you suspect he regrets?
Well, there are elements in which his office are trying to make amends behind the scenes, and I don't want to say more than that. But the problem with Elon Musk is he tweets 20 tweets in an hour, and I think sometimes he's not always. You cannot tweet 20 times in an hour on a range of subjects and fully thought through all your positions. And sometimes I think he takes positions which he hasn't fully advanced.
Right. Okay. So
I'm not going to say what you're going to draw me in the way that you always do. I've said it probably enough, but I don't think anyone would be surprised to hear that sometimes after Elon Musk has tweeted, he wonders whether what he tweeted was wise.
Well, apparently in the last hour that may have been the case. He's retweeted Nigel Farage's comments in a video I've released in recent.
He's probably never going to tweet "I was wrong yesterday, I'm sorry," which is what he should do. But I think retweeting Nigel Farage is a sign that maybe he realises he probably shouldn't have said what he did yesterday. But it's over now. I think if Reform, I would say to Reform, don't take the money now, because imagine if this had happened and Reform had taken the money, and then he said, I think Nigel Farage is a disaster, I want my money back, and half of it had been spent.
Really?
Then that puts you in a very difficult position. So I think the Elon Musk Reform relationship is over.
Do you?
I think if
it isn't,
it should be, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been incredibly helpful. It would have been a game changer in lots of ways if Reform had had the 20. I don't think it would have been $100 million. It could have been $20 million. Proportionate,
as you said,
to Britain, to America. I think Musk gave $100 million to Trump. Well, he's not going to give the same to a country much smaller.
Well, he gave $250 million to Trump. But
did he? $250 million? Okay, you're more at speed than I am. But the money would have been a game changer, Reform, if the relationship was stable and strong, and Elon Musk wasn't the controversial character that he's increasingly become.
But you say if that 20 million or so comes along now, you say no, and thank you. Here's a big kiss, goodbye, and don't come back, Elon Musk.
I do not make decisions on this.
No, in your view.
But in my view, if Nigel Farage, Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform, asked my opinion, I would say don't take it.
And is that view?
And that's a change of view.
Indeed, Tim. And is that view catching on?
Who knows, John?
What do you reckon?
I should think. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a view held at the top of Reform now.
How interesting. As always, Tim Montgomery. So interesting. I do love our little chats, Tim.
They're just between ourselves, aren't they? No one else is listening.
Nobody's listening.
Give Tim another hot chocolate. It's just having the required